Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Daily Voices FCIAC Football Fast 5. Everything you need to know about Fairfield County High School football, all in about 5 minutes. Back from the darkness comes Kevin Jones, former Stanford High School head football coach and agent for JL Sports. Kevin, good to have you back. You survived. I think you got power back about 30 seconds ago.
Yes, I was able to climb out through the trees, and we were able to get out and on the road today. So it's a very exciting day for the Jones family.
Hurricane Sandy wiped about everything out, just about everything out last week, including us. So we got a lot to catch up on right now on FCIAC Football Fast 5. We're going to have to go back 2 weeks to recap Week 7 when Hurricane Sandy was just a twinkle in our eye. Staples and they had the big Staples-Darien showdown. Staples didn't just beat Darien in what was supposed to be a showdown. They steamrolled them. Kevin, what has made Staples so good this year, and can anyone stop them at this point?
They didn't just beat them, they beat them down. You know, they took them out behind a woodshed. So I like Staples so much because they can execute in all three phases of the game. You know, they're not just an offensive team. They're excellent on defense, and they're really excellent on special teams. But that offense is special. They can spread you vertically. They can spread you horizontally. They force other defenses to cover the entire field. And not only that, they force you to cover all 11 guys with their option run attack and the pass game off of it. Very difficult to defend. On paper, it's pretty easy to draw up a defense against them, but on the turf, it's a little more difficult to execute, and that's why I think Staples is so good. And I would put them as good as any other team in the state.
All right, in our last episode, we said Ridgefield was a lock to win out and grab a Class LL state playoff spot, but then they fell to McMahon in a shocker and saw the Tigers coming out looking totally lackluster in that game. The good news for Ridgefield, though, is that the teams in front of them in the standings have some tough games in the final 3 weeks. But are there enough points, Kevin, out there to get the Tigers into the States in the event of a tie like last season?
Well, first I got to apologize to Ridgefield, because I keep picking them to go all the way, and then anybody I pick, obviously they lose. It's all my fault. So I looked at, the playoff scenario after Ridgefield lost, and they're the one team I think that might be able to jump back into the playoffs if they win out because, like Eric said, the other teams ahead of them, their schedules are so tough, there's going to be a bunch of losses in there for some of those teams. So for Ridgefield, I think they got to do two things. Number one, they didn't do it last week. You got to win your games. All right, you can't disappoint us. You got to take care of your own business. And then number two, if you do that, you're going to go home after your Thanksgiving game and hop on the internet before you have turkey because it's going to come down to who wins and loses on Thanksgiving to see whether or not you get in the playoffs.
All right, Hurricane Sandy did more than just mess up Kevin's front lawn with an 80-foot pine tree. It sent the football schedule reeling as well. FCIAC officials are pretty much saying, they didn't say it explicitly, but they're pretty much saying that unless it's Staples and Greenwich playing for the conference title on Thanksgiving Day, there won't be an FCIAC championship game this year. Obviously, this is a situation where there are some things more important than football, but how much of a bummer has this got to be for Trinity Catholic?
Listen, you can't fight Mother Nature. Most of the conference was like a disaster area after that hurricane hit. I mean, I know personally I know our area was, but I know that the FCIAC officials will do everything in their power to preserve that game. And so for them to say this, obviously, there's just nothing you can do about it. They went through all the answers. Because of the way the playoffs are set up, you can't have 3-4 weeks in a row where you're playing on Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturdays. You can't do that to the kids. There's too many opportunities for injury, not enough days off from games, and it goes against the bylaws of the state of Connecticut where you say you can't play more than one game in a week, which we do in the playoffs anyways. But for Trinity Catholic, you can't worry about it. You got a big game this week. You got a big game next week. I mean, you have big games left on the schedule. You worry about this, you're going to wind up losing one, and it won't matter anyway. So just win out, and you know what? If you're co-champions, take it and be happy.
All right, and speaking of Greenwich, Staples has gotten all the attention this season, but the Cardinals also put up 63 points on the board in Week 7, albeit against a team that's historically weaker than Darien and West Hill, but they're just a measly 5 points behind Staples in the Class LL standings. Kevin, is Greenwich underrated or overrated at this point?
Well, I don't think either. I think they're rated right where they need to be. I mean, number 2 is a good place to be. The top 4 teams get a home playoff game, so it doesn't matter whether you're 1, 2, 3, or 4. As long as you're in the top 4, you get that home playoff game, which I think is important when you head into the playoffs. And if they want to become number 1, it's very, very simple. Show up on Thanksgiving Day and beat Staples, and you will be number 1. So easy path for them. Even if they lose to Staples, they may still get a home game and be in that top 4 the way things are shaking out. We'll have to see.
All right, and that'll bring us to our Daily Voice Game of the Week this Saturday, 1 p.m., Darien at Trinity. Two-part question for you, Kevin. Does the layoff from the Storm hurt or help either of these teams? And can Trinity land the decisive blow to pretty much lock up their first state playoff spot in almost 20 years?
First part of the question, the layoff, I think, obviously is going to be good for Darien because they're banged up, and so you get a little extra time to get over those injuries. I don't know if it's going to be enough because they're almost on life support at this point, the way they've played the last couple of weeks. It's hard to find a fault with what Trinity's been doing. They're very solid. They're going to grind you into the ground. They're not going to impress you with a lot of flashy stuff, but they play a really good game of football right now. And it's hard for me not to say, hey, Trinity Catholic's going to win and pretty much lock up this playoff spot this weekend.
All right, that'll do it for another edition of the Daily Voices FCIAC Football Fast 5. I hope all of you are recovering from the storm. We'll see how the modified schedule turns out, and we're looking forward to the rest of the season. Until next time, I'm Eric Gendron.